This is Do-Rag Wisdom here, and today's wonderful date is Y2K16.10.19, October 19th, 2016. In 3 weeks away we have voting, and like this character said from 7 Days in May, I've quoted this before, it was Edmund O'Brien's character. The United States is resting on a tip, okay? It could go one way or the other or just completely fall off. And this movie, 7 Days in May, was about a segment of the military's attempt to overthrow our government. This movie was made way back in the 60s. And so now we have a megalomaniacal businessman who is trying to do the same thing. He's trying to overthrow our government. He's inciting riots. He is using false equivalencies. He's revising history. And if any of you have ever read 1984, you know what we're talking about. By the way, 1984, I keep pushing that book. That's a novel, but to me it's also a textbook on how to recognize totalitarian crap when you see it. Today we're going to talk about voting, aspects of it. And the first thing I want to say about voting in this crazy country is, no matter what they tell you, no matter what the pundits or what anybody tells you, nobody could give a crap if you're able to vote or not. Because if they did care about whether you voted or not, voting day would be a national holiday. There'd be no mail, there'd be holiday bus service, nobody would have to go to work, nobody would have to come back late at night, like say 7 o'clock at night, maybe an hour before the polls close, hunt around for traffic after a long and miserable day at work. And then finally you get into the polling and you're able to vote. You know, you're finally able to vote. Okay. That's how much they encourage us to vote, by making it as hard as possible. But you have to understand something about our society. We have a society that has what's called the quote-unquote Protestant work ethic, where you work until you drop dead. I mean, if you're able to go in on a gurney with the oxygen and the needles and everything else, oh sure, they'd have you in there. Anything so you could be make your contribution to the great bosses that really are so generous and they really love you. Oh. And here you are, the hero of all times. Last day of your life, getting wheeled into your job. How dedicated is that, my friend? We have a Protestant work ethic in this country. And that means you work until you drop dead because it's a religious duty. Because it says in the Bible that you shall work by the sweat of your brow. And it also says, women shall give birth in pain and agony. Sorry about that. When I start talking about the Bible, I get filled with the Spirit. I get filled with the Spirit of the Lord. And I'm an atheist too. How can I get filled with the Spirit of the Lord? Now I'm going to talk in tongues. Work your ass off. Work your ass. Get home late. Now you can't vote. Now you can't vote because voting day isn't a holiday. Voting day should be a holiday. No one should work on one of the holiest days, the high holiday like Yom Kippur of our democracy, and we go to work on that day? How outrageous. I believe that voting day, election day should be a holiday. I believe that people should be able to vote early if they have to, if they can. I think there should be ballot voting. And I think that we're intelligent enough in our society. Well, we're running Donald Trump, so we're not so intelligent Some of us are not that intelligent. Some of us are pretty dangerous, as a matter of fact. But in this society, enough technology, you could make it as easy as possible for people to vote. You know, so you make voting an election day. I mean, make voting an election day. You make the election day a holiday. You make sure that people in charge of elections are nonpartisan. Right now, what I understand is in each state, if the state is controlled by Republicans, then the Republicans are in charge of all the districts. If the state's in charge of Democrats, they are. No wonder Bush won stole the election in 2000. Imagine Maine Trump supporter and fanatic moron Paul LePage of Maine, the governor there. He's in charge of the elections in Maine, and he's saying there could be a lot of widespread voter fraud. Ladies and gentlemen, let's start with making Election Day a holiday, a national holiday, where we proclaim the love of our democratic republic. And the next thing we got to do, of course, is we got to make it easy for people. Everybody, students should be able to vote on campus. Elderly people like me can hobble over as close as possible in a neighborhood someplace to vote, or to do it by mail. That's how you have a free society, and that's how you have a free and open and easy voting system. One last thing before I sign off today. Do-Rag Wisdom here signs off. And again, I'm not wearing a do-rag, so you know, I know it's... the pundits have to stop. The media has to stop saying that Trump is finished, that he's losing. Ladies and gentlemen, the only thing that matters, ignore the polls, ignore the pundits, ignore the media. I'm sorry, I used to teach media. Ignore it. The only thing that matters on election day is when people walk into the poll, they go into that booth and they vote. That's the only thing that matters. The only thing. Anything else is superfluous. I still believe that maniac can win. I don't underestimate the stupidity of this country. I don't underestimate the violence that exists beneath the surface, like in Twin Peaks or in Blue Velvet. The nightmare of hatred, of Nazism. I believe that exists then, and it exists now. And we have to defend ourselves. And the most important thing that you can do right now in this election, where we have the choice between a cuckold corporatist, I'm sorry, Hillary Clinton, and a maniac, psychopath, dictator Adolf Hitler in waiting. So, folks, don't worry about the polls. Don't think about the polls. He can still win. The monster can still win. So get out there and vote yourself, flesh and blood. Walk to the polls and you vote. You vote against Donald Adolf Hitler Trump. Because if you listen to these pundits, I mean, he's lost already according to everybody. You ever heard of an upset? You ever heard of an upset? I'm going to be there. I'm taking my wife there early in the morning to vote. Because I do not underestimate the stupidity that exists in this country. I do not underestimate evil. And I do not underestimate the lies, the nefarious intent of Donald Trump and his supporters and the GOP racists who's been supporting this birther since day one. Well, now their Frankenstein monster is loose, and only us, the rational, compassionate voters, will have the opportunity to make sure this evil doesn't take over our country and destroy us. Who knows? Everybody's got to work on election day, so it's very hard. Got to fight the traffic. You got to fight all the morons out there trying to block you. The poll watchers, the pundits, the predictors, the redactors. You have to get out and vote. And if you knew how important it was, like I do, you would get your ass out there as early as possible and get in those polls and make sure that a dictator doesn't take over our country. Please be safe, ladies and gentlemen. This is Do-Rag Wisdom. Please be safe.